You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. We are talking with Eli Hoffmann, who is in charge of the content at Seeking Alpha. Eli, how you doing today?
Fine, thanks, Doug. Nice to be here.
You know, before we go too in depth, maybe you could describe to people, what is Seeking Alpha?
Sure. Seeking Alpha is a website for U.S.-based or U.S.-focused stock market investors. We have a variety of content, but the common theme of all of our content is the type of opinion and analysis that we hope helps investors make smarter investment decisions in managing their portfolios, in deciding what stocks or ETFs to invest in.
Okay, and how did you get the name Seeking Alpha?
Alpha is a stock market jargon for the extent to which a portfolio's returns exceed the risks that one's taken to generate those returns. So when one seeks alpha, one seeks to generate better returns than the risk you take within your portfolio. And a lot of what happens on our website, because we address primarily a market of long-term self-managed investors and financial professionals, is people looking for alpha. How can I adjust or build my portfolio in a way that offers me the opportunity to capture returns that are in excess of whatever level of risk I'm comfortable with taking.
Okay. I guess, by the way, as means of disclaimer, I have to share with the listeners that I myself have written a number of times for Seeking Alpha. And so although this is not an advertisement for the website, I have to say that I also, not only am I a writer, but I do look at the site from I wouldn't even say time to time, but regularly to see what people are thinking. Seeking Alpha actually seems to have been quite a success story as a business in and of itself. To what do you attribute that success?
In 2004, 2005, when David Jackson, the founder of Seeking Alpha, set up the company and the website, the idea was to be a grassroots organization in which sophisticated investors came and discussed and debated their approaches to investing. And I think that a lot of our success has been our unswerving dedication to that vision as the company has grown. We've gained a reputation, I hope, among investors for a place where you can go for serious discussion to see what other smart investors are talking about and thinking about, perhaps apply some of those principles to your own investments, and do it in a way which hopefully avoids a lot of the mudslinging and more acerbic type of discourse that goes on in some other websites.
Okay, I think that's a good summary. The question is, the information that you get is really being supplied by your readers. How do you know that it's objective?
That's a great question. Yes, Seeking Alpha is a contributor-driven website. So by and large, we don't produce our own content and we don't have a house opinion on which stocks you should be buying or selling or how you should be approaching portfolio strategy, for example. What we do is we've created a platform for smart investors to share ideas, and often on Seeking Alpha you could easily find equally compelling bullish and bearish cases for the same stock. What we do add to that is an editorial layer. So nobody can publish an article to Seeking Alpha without that article having gone through our editor's hands. Editors generally select articles based on the quality of the analysis, to some extent, the track record and reputation of the person writing the article. And if we do a good job, which I think we do, then the chances are you're not going to find really mediocre, low-level opinion and analysis on Seeking Alpha. Does that mean that every article is by definition going to be right? Well, obviously not, because all of this is prognostication, and your you're trying to see what people are thinking about and then formulate your own decision about where things are going.
Okay, there's also a section of the website which is a blog that's a non-edited version. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We have what's called Instablogs. What we found over time is that some contributors preferred, either always or in certain circumstances, not to have to go through any editorial filter and just publish whatever they choose to publish it about. So we do have an unmoderated area of the website. Those articles don't go onto our main website. They're not syndicated to our content partners, but some people prefer that experience.
Okay, we are talking with Eli Hoffmann, who is a veteran at seekingalpha.com. He is in charge of the content that appears on the site, working as its editor-in-chief. You've been there since 2006, right?
That's correct.
And before that, you were a professional trader. You were involved on Wall Street on that side?
No, not exactly. I did trade my own account for some period of time, and I've been a hobbyist investor for more years than I choose to remember. But I never worked on Wall Street, and actually my previous occupation prior to becoming to Seeking Alpha was as a teacher and a school principal.
So as someone who has traded himself, and now you presumably look at a fair amount of content, do you feel that had you had this content when you were trading, you would have been better at what you did?
Let me answer that question by saying that much of what I did when I was actively trading was probably too short term for what we try and accomplish at Seeking Alpha. We're not a day trader's website. We're not even a website for swing traders or short-term traders. So it would have been less helpful to me in what I was aspiring to do. We aspire to be a website which primarily caters to long-term investors who are looking to either approach investing perhaps from a value or a growth standpoint. So for my personal approach to investing in the past when I was investing my own account, perhaps less so, because we don't really cater to that group. Do I think that Seeking Alpha provides a lot of value to people who approach investing similar to our audience? Yes, definitely.
Okay, so now let's say that you are an investor and you like to trade your own stocks. What's the best way that you could use Seeking Alpha to maximize all of the services that it provides?
I don't think there's by any means one way to use Seeking Alpha, nor do I think there's one type of investor. We have investors that are primarily focused on dividend or fixed income investing. We have investors that view themselves as stock pickers and they're trying to simply pick the best growth or value stocks. We have investors that view themselves as portfolio strategists, so they're not really looking to invest in things that are going to give them outsized gains, but instead to adjust their portfolio's consistency in a way which minimizes risk and maximizes potential growth. The different tools which our community uses, we have a lot of people that are article readers. They subscribe to what we call real-time email alerts, which means you can describe to us the stocks and ETFs that you follow, and we then send you out an email every time a news item or an article is published about those stocks or ETFs, and that comes into your inbox. You say, I'd like to read that article. You click through the website, read the article, and more often than not probably want to see what other people in the community have to say about that article. We've got a fairly robust comment community. So on any given article, there's likely to be an ensuing discussion. And we've got amazing contributors, but we've also got amazing readers. And I've heard many times from Seeking Alpha users that it's not unusual to find the discussion ensuing from an article more stimulating than the article itself and more generating of thought-provoking analysis.
Okay, so there's always the fear that someone is going to comment very intelligently who has some sort of conflict of interest?
Yes. We approach that from a relatively hands-off perspective, which is to say, I assume that most people on Seeking Alpha, whether they're contributors writing articles or whether they're commenters participating in the discussion, probably have some bias. Our approach is to require contributors or anybody essentially posting on the website to disclose that bias in any article that they write. And then it's up to the reader to decide, having known the person's bias, do I or don't I want to listen to what he has to say? So I would say reading an article from a person who discloses that he's long or short a given stock, I'm going to want to think about whether I'm concerned that this person is therefore being skewed by that. But on the other hand, we view often the people who do have a bias and who have approached this as investors rather than, let's say, journalists, as some of our most valuable contributors, because they have the, quote unquote, skin in the game to really have made that decision, investing a lot of time, effort, and know-how into making sure they got things right, because this is not an intellectual exercise for them. It's something that they're putting real money on. David, our founder, has often said that Seeking Alpha was the web's answer to sell-side analysis. Sell-side analysis is what the Wall Street investment brokerages produce, and they've got a team of analysts that spend a lot of time producing analyst reports about stocks and different themes. Their hope is that you'll buy into some of what they're saying and ultimately take a position in the stock. Seeking Alpha's approach is that most of our contributors are, if anything, buy side, meaning they're real investors. They've taken a position in the stock, and it's in their best interest to talk up that position and to make other people aware of the stocks that they're bullish and bearish on, because the more people that buy into their approach, the better chance they have of turning that into a profitable investment.
Okay, so the readers who are also somewhat contributors, either by commenting or they're actually contributors, it appears they may have a bias, and we accept that and want to look beyond that, but that's okay. It seems that Seeking Alpha is I don't know what your profit model is or your revenue model is, but there's obviously a lot of advertising for relevant investment services. Does the website itself have conflicts that we should be aware of?
No. We do have some ETF providers that are among our key advertisers. I suppose in theory we might have a conflict of interest in that we would publish articles that it could either be bullish or bearish about a given ETF, or even dissect an ETF and say, I think this ETF among the different ETFs that one can use, for example, to gain exposure to gold, silver, precious metals, among the different ones, this is the best one. As editor-in-chief, I can say that there's somewhat of a Chinese wall between sales and editorial, and that we don't allow, in any circumstances, the advertisers that our sales team is engaging to any way influence what we do on the website. And if need be, I could cite many, many examples in which we've been quite open to heavily critical articles of advertiser and Seeking Alpha. And indeed, there's been cases where we've lost advertisers because they were upset that we published an article that was negative about something they had done or said. All
right. Eli Hoffmann, just tell me, other than the website, what is beyond Seeking Alpha? What else do you do off the web?
Not a whole lot. Between my family and Seeking Alpha, that pretty much sums up my life. We've got a bunch of kids here, and once I get home, if I'm in Renana for the day, that's where our office is here, and I live in Jerusalem, so family keeps me pretty busy. It's we're a pretty ambitious, young, early stage, I would say, web growth company, and so we spend a lot of time and really don't take any shortcuts at Seeking Alpha. It's a fun and great place to work. So outside of those two things, not a lot going on.
All right. Okay, we've been talking to Eli Hoffmann, who is the content and editor-in-chief of seekingalpha.com. It's worth taking a look at it. Eli, thank you so much for your time. I hope we'll have you back again on the show to talk more about some of the specific things that are going on the website to attract people to come.
That'll be fun, Doug. Thanks a lot.
Take care.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt show.